Every breakthrough begins the moment you decide your life deserves higher standards. This video reveals how to level up through self-respecting actions that strengthen identity and elevate your path. Chapter 1 to 10 walk you through powerful shifts, raising standards, committing to growth, protecting energy, elevating routines, refining habits, building discipline, expanding skills, shaping environments, upgrading mindset, and honoring self-worth through action. You'll walk away with clarity, confidence, and a blueprint you can use today. Subscribe to Audiobook every day for daily transformation, disciplined growth, and life-changing guidance delivered in full-length audiobooks. Number 1. Build self-worth through daily choices. Every day offers a quiet opportunity to rise, not through dramatic gestures or grand declarations, but through the small, steady choices that shape the person you become. Self-worth is not something handed over by the world. It grows from the decisions you make when no one is watching, in the private moments where character is built. The person who levels up does so long before the results become visible to others. Growth starts internally in the way you treat yourself, speak to yourself, and direct your energy. A single choice may feel insignificant, yet each one forms a thread in the structure of a stronger, more grounded life. Self-worth begins with the recognition that every action reflects what you believe about yourself. The individual who feels powerless makes choices that reinforce that belief. The individual who understands their potential makes choices that protect it. It is easy to underestimate the tiny decisions repeated throughout a day. Whether to stay in bed a little longer, whether to finish a task fully, whether to reach for a distraction, or stay present. But those choices are not small. They are votes cast for the person you become. A day is nothing more than a sequence of decisions, and a life is nothing more than a collection of days. Self-worth grows through discipline, because discipline proves to your own mind that you are capable of directing your life instead of being controlled by passing impulses. Discipline is not about harshness, it is about alignment. When your actions match your values, your mind rests easier. When your behavior supports your goals, you feel stronger, clearer, and more able to trust yourself. Each disciplined choice tells your mind that you are someone who can be relied upon. That trust is the foundation of self-worth. The world often tries to convince people that confidence comes from external approval, praise, attention, validation, applause. But external rewards fade quickly. They satisfy the ego for a moment, but do not nourish the spirit. True confidence is born from acting in a way that aligns with your principles. When you do the right thing, even when it is inconvenient, difficult, or unnoticed, you create inner strength. That strength cannot be taken from you because it does not rely on anyone else. Daily choices also reveal what you are willing to tolerate. When you settle for less than you deserve, your mind records it. When you accept disrespect, procrastination, unhealthy habits, or negative self-talk, your mind begins to normalize them. Over time, tolerance becomes identity. That is why it is essential to make choices that honor your worth, even when those choices require effort. Rejecting what weakens you is just as important as embracing what strengthens you. Each moment spent honoring your value reinforces the belief that your life matters and your path deserves care. Small, consistent actions hold tremendous power. For example, the decision to tidy your environment before starting the day may seem too simple to matter, yet it sends a message to your mind. Order matters, clarity matters, and your space is a reflection of your inner state. The decision to complete a task instead of abandoning it halfway teaches your mind that follow-through is your standard. The decision to focus for 10 more minutes builds mental resilience. Tiny choices, repeated consistently, create a stable foundation that supports larger achievements. Self-worth thrives when you commit to a standard, not perfection, not unrealistic expectations. A standard. A commitment that says, this is how I live, this is how I treat myself, and this is how I show up in the world. Standards anchor behavior. They prevent drifting. They protect you from becoming a version of yourself shaped by circumstance instead of intention. A person with strong standards does not need loud confidence. Their presence speaks for them. Choosing how to think is also a daily practice that shapes self-worth. Not every thought deserves attention. The mind often produces doubt, fear, and criticism. based on past experiences or unchallenged beliefs. When you decide not to accept every negative thought as truth, you begin reclaiming control of your inner world. A single moment of refusing a destructive thought is a victory. A day filled with clear, grounded thinking is transformation. Over time, your mind learns to trust your leadership. Every day you encounter a choice between ease and growth. Ease offers comfort now, but discomfort later. Growth offers discomfort now, but strength later. The people who rise are the ones who repeatedly choose growth. They embrace the discomfort of discipline because they understand its value. They see beyond the moment. They see who they will become. Each time you choose growth, you send a message to yourself. Your future matters enough to endure a little difficulty today. Self-worth also deepens when you commit to being honest with yourself. Honesty is not self-criticism. It is clarity. It allows you to see where your choices are helping you and where they are holding you back. Honest reflection prevents self-deception, which is often the greatest barrier to progress. A person who tells themselves the truth gains power because they understand what needs to be improved. There is nothing more liberating than clarity about your own behavior. Self-respect grows from consistency. Consistency does not require perfection. It requires willingness. The willingness to show up, even when motivation is low. The willingness to complete the small tasks that build a strong foundation. The willingness to correct your course when you drift off track. Consistency tells your mind that you do not give up on yourself, even when the circumstances make it tempting. That loyalty to your own growth is a profound form of self-love. Each day also gives you the choice of where to place your attention. Attention is one of the most powerful tools you possess. Whatever you focus on strengthens. When you dwell on problems, fear increases. When you think about what you cannot control, frustration grows. But when you direct your attention toward constructive action, your inner world becomes steady and powerful. Choosing where to focus is an act of mental discipline that builds self-worth by reminding you that your mind is not a battlefield but a tool. It is important to recognize that not every day will feel productive or strong. Some days will be heavy. Some choices will be difficult, but even on the days when progress feels slow, the intention to choose what aligns with your growth matters. A single small act of self-respect can restore momentum. Even deciding to pause, breathe, and realign is a powerful choice. Self-worth is not built in perfect conditions. It is built in real life with its chaos, unpredictability, and challenges. Each choice serves as a quiet reminder that you are responsible for your own rise. Responsibility is not a burden. It is freedom. When you take ownership of your actions, your responses, your habits, and your direction, you free yourself from dependence on the world to validate your worth. You realize that you are capable of shaping your own destiny. This realization strengthens confidence in a way that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. The journey of leveling up begins with a simple truth. The person you become is shaped by the choices you make every single day. Not by chance, not by luck, not by external forces, by choice. Choices that reflect strength, clarity, discipline, and self-respect. Choices that remind your mind that you are worthy of a life that reflects your potential. Choices that align your behavior with your values. Through these daily decisions, self-worth becomes not an emotion but a practice, not a feeling but a commitment. By honoring yourself in small, consistent ways, you create a life built on intention and integrity. You become someone who trusts your own judgment, someone who stands firm in your values, someone who grows stronger with each day. This is the foundation upon which all other improvement rests. When you build self-worth through daily choices, you unlock the ability to level up in every area of your life. Not because the world changes, but because you change and your choices shape everything that follows. Number 2. Remove habits blocking your growth. Many obstacles in life do not come from the world around you, but from patterns you repeat without noticing. These patterns quietly slow your progress, drain your energy, and weaken your confidence. Growth becomes difficult, not because you lack potential, but because certain habits work against the direction you want to move in. Removing these habits is not about punishing yourself or creating harsh restrictions. It is about clearing the path so you can move forward without unnecessary weight. A person rises the moment they stop feeding what holds them down. Every unhelpful habit begins as a choice that once served a purpose. Maybe it offered comfort, escape, or predictability during a stressful time. Over time, the mind holds on to those behaviors long after their usefulness has ended. The challenge is recognizing when a habit is no longer supporting your life, but slowly eroding your momentum. This recognition requires honesty, not judgment. You cannot change what you refuse to see. When you observe your daily behavior with calm clarity, you begin noticing patterns that no longer match who you want to become. Growth starts with awareness. You must understand which habits drain your time, which ones keep you distracted, which ones encourage avoidance, and which ones weaken your discipline. Many people underestimate how much small behaviors influence their direction. The habit of checking your phone the moment discomfort arises seems harmless, yet it teaches your mind to escape rather than endure. The habit of delaying important work creates a loop of stress and guilt that damages confidence. The habit of entertaining negative thoughts trains your mind to expect failure instead of possibility. These patterns are subtle, but they shape your identity little by little. Removing harmful habits requires courage because habits often provide comfort. Even when they cause harm, they feel familiar. The mind prefers familiarity over uncertainty, even when the familiar is destructive. That is why breaking old patterns feels uncomfortable at first. You are not just changing behavior, you are confronting the emotional attachment behind it. But once you understand that discomfort is a signal of transformation, not danger, you begin moving through it with more ease. A powerful step toward removing harmful habits is identifying the triggers that activate them. Most habits do not appear out of nowhere. They are responses to specific moments: boredom, fatigue, insecurity, stress, pressure, or loneliness. When you recognize what triggers your patterns, you gain control. Instead of reacting automatically, you can respond intentionally. For example, if stress leads you toward unhealthy coping mechanisms, noticing the early signs of tension gives you a chance to redirect your energy. This awareness shifts you from being controlled by habit to being guided by intention. Once you identify the habit you want to remove, simplify the process. Trying to eliminate several habits at once creates overwhelm. Focus on one pattern that consistently blocks your progress. Removing even a single destructive habit can transform your emotional state, productivity, and self-image. Treat this process as refining your character, not as a punishment. The goal is not to fight yourself, it is to support yourself. The mind responds strongly to consistency. When you interrupt a negative habit repeatedly, even in small ways, the mind begins weakening its grip on that behavior. For instance, if procrastination is blocking your growth, reducing the delay by even a few minutes teaches your mind that avoiding the task is no longer the default. If overthinking keeps you stuck, replacing rumination with immediate action shifts your mindset from fear to responsibility. Even tiny shifts, when repeated, reshape the mind's expectations. Replacing a harmful habit with a supportive one accelerates change. The brain dislikes empty space. If you remove a habit without offering an alternative, the old behavior often returns. For example, replacing pointless scrolling with reading, stretching, or organized planning gives the mind a more constructive pattern to follow. Replacing emotional eating with mindful breathing or a brisk walk calms your nervous system instead of feeding the cycle. When your new behavior meets the need that the old habit once tried to satisfy, change becomes sustainable. Removing habits that block growth also requires setting standards. Standards protect you from slipping back into old patterns. They act as reminders of the life you are building. When you declare that your time matters, you automatically become more aware of habits that waste it. When you decide that your mental peace is non-negotiable, you stop feeding behaviors that create chaos. Standards become internal boundaries that keep your life aligned with your values. Sometimes habits that block growth are mental rather than physical. Patterns of self-doubt, comparison, or catastrophizing drain your strength just as deeply as external behaviors. When your mind constantly predicts failure or assumes the worst, it becomes difficult to make progress. Removing these mental habits requires replacing fear-based thinking with clarity. Instead of assuming you will fail, focus on what is within your control. Instead of comparing your journey to someone else's, return to your own path. This shift frees your mind from unnecessary pressure and allows your energy to flow toward progress instead of worry. Another habit that often obstructs growth is seeking constant comfort. Comfort is pleasant, but too much of it weakens resilience. When you rely on comfort to escape discomfort, you teach your mind to fear challenge. Growth demands the willingness to feel temporary discomfort in exchange for long-term strength. Removing the habit of choosing ease over effort builds inner toughness. Each time you choose effort, even in small ways, your mind becomes stronger and your tolerance for challenge increases. Habits also form around the company you keep. Sometimes the pattern blocking your growth is repeatedly placing yourself in environments or relationships that drain you. When you surround yourself with negativity, complacency, or drama, those patterns influence your behavior. Removing the habit of tolerating draining environments is a powerful step toward leveling up. You are not required to carry people or situations that consistently pull you backward. Growth thrives in spaces that support discipline, clarity, and ambition. Another common habit that limits growth is ignoring your own needs. When you push yourself without rest, avoid expressing emotions, or neglect physical well-being, you weaken your ability to grow. Removing this habit requires recognizing that rest is not laziness, boundaries are not selfish, and tending to your well-being is essential for progress. When you honor your needs, you become more capable, more focused, and more resilient. One of the most transformative shifts occurs when you stop justifying the very habits that harm you. Many people defend their unhelpful patterns by saying they have always been that way, or that change is too difficult, or that the timing is not right. These excuses create a cage that restricts growth. When you release the excuses, the cage opens. Growth becomes possible the moment you stop arguing for your limitation. Removing habits that block your growth requires patience. You will have moments where you slide backward, but backward steps do not erase progress. What matters is your willingness to return to your path with determination. Progress is not a straight line. It is a process of refining, adjusting, and strengthening. Each day offers another chance to choose differently, to act with more intention, and to honor your future self. Every habit you remove creates space for a better version of you to emerge. The moment you release what weakens you, you become lighter. You move through life with more clarity and purpose. You gain access to the energy, confidence, and discipline needed to rise. Growth does not come from adding more, it comes from removing what blocks your potential. With each habit you eliminate, the path becomes clearer, your mind becomes sharper, and your life starts aligning with who you are capable of becoming. Number 3. Strengthen identity with small wins. Identity is not something fixed at birth, it is shaped through the choices you prove to yourself over time. Every small win becomes a piece of evidence your mind uses to decide who you are. When you complete something meaningful, even if it seems minor, your inner voice grows steadier. When you follow through on a commitment, your character strengthens. When you push yourself just a little beyond your comfort zone, your self-image shifts. These subtle victories accumulate, forming the foundation of a stronger, clearer identity. A person does not become confident all at once. Confidence develops from a long trail of moments where you showed up, acted with intention, and refused to quit. Small wins matter because the mind relies on proof, not theory. You can tell yourself you want to change, but your identity only shifts when your actions support that belief. Each time you do something you once avoided, you tell your mind a new story about your capabilities. Over time, your actions create a more solid sense of self. Large achievements are inspiring, but they are built from thousands of smaller efforts that often go unnoticed. The world may not applaud them, but your mind records every single one. A small win might be as simple as completing a task immediately instead of postponing it. It might be choosing clarity over distraction. It might be taking a step toward a goal even when progress feels slow. These tiny actions carry weight because they reveal discipline, they reveal direction, they reveal intention. They show that you are becoming a person who acts rather than a person who hesitates. With each small success, the identity of someone who follows through gains strength. The power of small wins lies in their consistency. Large goals can feel overwhelming, but smaller steps feel approachable. When you achieve something small every day, the mind develops a pattern of success. This pattern becomes your new baseline. It shifts you from someone who waits for motivation to someone who takes action regardless of mood. Identity is shaped most deeply when actions are repeated, not when they are performed dramatically once in a while. Consistency carves character. Another reason small wins build identity is that they create momentum. Momentum is one of the most valuable forces in personal growth. When you experience forward movement, even in small amounts, you naturally want to keep going. The mind enjoys progress, and it dislikes breaking a pattern once one has been established. Every small win becomes a spark that fuels the next. Over time, these sparks create a steady flame of self-belief that cannot be extinguished easily. Small wins also redefine how you see challenges. When you succeed at something minor, your mind becomes more willing to attempt something slightly more difficult. You become more open to discomfort because you have proof that you can handle it. A person who collects small wins begins to see obstacles as opportunities to reinforce character rather than threats to avoid. This shift in perception gives you resilience. It teaches you that progress is possible even when the path is uncertain. Another important effect of small wins is the influence they have on your habits. When you complete a small task repeatedly, it begins turning into a pattern. Habits are simply repeated actions that require less effort over time. By securing small wins daily, you are retraining your brain to operate differently, to expect action instead of avoidance, to seek progress instead of stagnation. These new patterns form the architecture of a stronger self. Identity strengthening through small wins also stabilizes your emotions. When you feel capable, you become less reactive. You no longer attach your worth to external judgment. You rely on your own actions as evidence of who you are. This internal clarity gives you calmness. You stop seeking validation because you already carry certainty within yourself. Each small win reinforces this calm by giving you another reason to trust your own abilities. A powerful aspect of small wins is the way they reduce self-doubt. Doubt thrives in silence, in inactivity, in long periods of hesitation. But when you take action, even in the smallest form, doubt loses its influence. Action creates certainty. Hesitation strengthens fear. Each small win acts like a counterweight that pulls you away from doubt and closer to confidence. The more you act, the less space doubt has to grow. Small wins also remind you that growth can happen without dramatic breakthroughs. The mind often waits for the perfect moment to start something, expecting that change needs to be grand. But small wins teach you that transformation occurs quietly, often without applause, through steady movement. When you accept that progress does not need to be impressive to be meaningful, you free yourself from unrealistic expectations. You focus on the process instead of the outcome, and that mindset strengthens your identity far more effectively than perfection. You also learn discipline through small wins. Discipline is not about forcing yourself. It is about proving that you can rely on your own decisions. When you commit to finishing a small task, you develop trust in your willpower. When you honor your word in small situations, you build loyalty to yourself. Discipline formed through small wins feels natural because it is built gradually. It becomes your default mode rather than something you struggle to maintain. Small wins are also powerful because they accumulate in unexpected ways. You may not notice the transformation at first, but over weeks and months, the changes become visible. You speak differently. You hold yourself differently. You move with more intention. You become more decisive. You feel more grounded. You begin to view yourself as someone capable of rising consistently. These changes are the result of small victories stacking together until they create a version of you that feels stronger, wiser, and more capable. Another important effect is how small wins shift your relationship with time. Rather than feeling pressured by long-term goals, you focus on the present moment. You give your full attention to what is in front of you, knowing that it contributes to something great. This presence strengthens your identity because it keeps you connected to your actions. You stop drifting and start engaging with your life in a more meaningful way. Small wins also build patience. When you see progress happening steadily, you stop expecting overnight results. You stop rushing. You stop comparing. You understand that your path is shaped through persistence rather than speed. Patience strengthens identity because it shows that you trust your direction. You no longer need instant outcomes to feel secure. The journey becomes as valuable as the destination. The true transformation occurs when you begin taking pride in these small wins. This pride is not arrogance, it is recognition. Recognition that you are growing in ways that matter. Recognition that you are becoming someone you can depend on. Recognition that your identity is no longer defined by past mistakes or previous limitations. Each small win writes a new chapter of who you are becoming. Small wins are not merely tasks, they are affirmations that you are capable of rising, shaping your life, and stepping into a stronger identity. They remind you that growth does not require perfection, only intention. Over time, these wins shape a version of you that feels solid, resilient, and aligned with your values. With each small step, your identity becomes clearer, your confidence grows deeper, and your path forward becomes more defined. Number 4. Elevate mindset using disciplined routines. A disciplined routine is more than a schedule. It is a structure that strengthens your thinking, stabilizes your emotions, and sharpens your perception. When your days follow intentional patterns, your mind stops wasting energy on confusion and inconsistency. Instead, it learns to operate from clarity. A stronger mindset is not the result of occasional motivation, but the outcome of repeated actions that align your thoughts, behavior, and direction. Discipline becomes the quiet force that lifts your mindset to a higher level, steady, grounded, and focused. A routine matters because the mind becomes what it repeatedly experiences. Chaotic habits produce scattered thinking. Unplanned days create reactive behavior. When you drift through hours without intention, your mind adapts to that lack of structure, and over time you begin feeling unfocused and emotionally fragile. But when your days hold a rhythm, waking with purpose, doing meaningful work, tending to your physical and mental state, you build a stable internal environment. That stability is the soil in which a stronger mindset grows. Disciplined routines elevate the mind by giving it direction. Without direction, the mind wanders toward fears, distractions, and impulses. With direction, it channels energy into meaningful actions. A structured morning, for example, sets the tone for how you think for the rest of the day. When you begin with intention, stretching, writing, reading, or reflecting, you train your mind to be proactive rather than reactive. That early structure strengthens your mental posture, making it easier to face challenges with resilience instead of frustration. A strong routine also removes unnecessary decisions. Decision fatigue weakens mental strength, making it harder to stay focused. When your day has predictable pillars, exercise, work blocks, breaks, learning time, rest, you conserve mental energy for what truly matters. The mind feels calmer when it knows what to expect. In this calmness, deeper thought and greater discipline become possible. A routine is not about restricting life. It is about freeing your mind from constant uncertainty. Disciplined routines also teach the mind patience. When you commit to daily practices, you learn to trust gradual progress. You no longer depend on instant results or emotional highs to stay motivated. The routine itself becomes the source of momentum. Over time, you stop seeking external motivation because your actions generate internal drive. This shift transforms your mindset from fragile to resilient. You develop the ability to stay focused even when the path feels slow. Structure also strengthens the mind by reducing chaos. When your environment is cluttered or unorganized, your thoughts follow the same pattern. A routine that includes maintaining your space naturally increases mental clarity. A clear room supports a clear mind. When your surroundings are ordered, your thoughts settle more easily. This sense of order trains the mind to prioritize simplicity over complication, steadiness over disorder. Another benefit of disciplined routines is the way they increase self-control. When you follow a routine, you are training the mind to act based on intention rather than impulse. The temptation to avoid hard tasks weakens because your mind becomes accustomed to doing what is necessary, not just what feels easy. Each day you follow your routine, your mental discipline grows stronger. You become someone who can guide your mind instead of being pulled around by shifting emotions. Routines also strengthen mental resilience because they help you recover from difficult days. When life becomes heavy, discipline provides a foundation to return to. Even when you feel tired or discouraged, the routine gives you a structure to lean on. This prevents you from spiraling or losing direction. The ability to return to grounded habits after challenging moments is one of the strongest signs of a resilient mind. Discipline turns setbacks into temporary pauses instead of full stops. A disciplined routine also elevates your mindset by giving your day meaning. Many people feel lost not because they lack goals, but because their daily actions do not support those goals. A routine bridges the gap between intention and execution. When your schedule reflects your values, your mind begins to identify with those values. If learning is part of your routine, you see yourself as someone committed to growth. If exercise is consistent, you see yourself as someone who values strength. If reflection is regular, you see yourself as someone who prioritizes self-awareness. These patterns shift your identity, and identity shapes mindset. The mind becomes stronger when it experiences consistency. Consistency rewires thinking pathways, creating mental patterns that support long-term success. When you repeatedly show up for yourself, you destroy the belief that you are inconsistent or incapable. Instead, you build a reputation with yourself, a reputation that says you follow through, you stay stable, and you act with intention. This belief becomes fuel for greater goals. When the mind trusts itself, possibilities expand. Disciplined routines also sharpen focus. In a world full of distractions, focus is a rare strength. A routine allows you to block dedicated periods of time for concentrated work. By repeating these focused sessions daily, your mind becomes better at maintaining attention. The ability to concentrate deeply is not a gift. It is a skill shaped through consistent practice. With enhanced focus, your thinking becomes clearer, your work becomes more efficient, and your mental boundaries become stronger. Routines also strengthen mindset by helping you measure progress. When your actions occur consistently, you can see patterns, what works, what needs adjustment, and where you are improving. This awareness encourages growth without pressure. A routine makes progress visible. Even on days when motivation is low, you still accumulate small achievements. These subtle victories build confidence in a way scattered effort never can. Another powerful effect of disciplined routines is emotional stability. When your days are anchored by consistent actions, your emotions become less turbulent. You stop reacting to every shift in mood because your routine keeps you grounded. The mind learns that actions come first, emotions follow. Over time, you no longer depend on feeling ready before you begin something. You act because it is part of your structure, not because the moment feels perfect. This ability to separate action from emotion creates a stable, elevated mindset. Disciplined routines also train the mind to embrace discomfort. Growth often requires doing things that challenge your comfort zone. Early mornings, difficult tasks, learning new skills, or facing responsibilities you once avoided. When these tasks become regular parts of your routine, discomfort loses its power. The mind no longer sees challenge as a threat, but as a normal part of life. This shift gives you strength that carries into every area of your journey. Another important benefit is how routines reduce overthinking. When your day lacks structure, your mind fills the empty spaces with worry, doubt, or unnecessary rumination. A routine keeps the mind engaged in purposeful action, leaving less room for destructive thought patterns. This doesn't suppress emotions. It gives them less space to grow into something overwhelming. A focused mind is a calmer mind. A disciplined routine does not need to be complicated. What matters is consistency, not perfection. A steady morning ritual, planned work periods, intentional breaks, moments of learning, time for rest. These elements, repeated daily, elevate the mind. Even small adjustments like waking up at a consistent hour, ending the day with reflection, or setting specific times for focused work create mental strength when practiced across weeks and months. The true power of disciplined routines lies in what they do to your character. They transform you into someone who can rely on your own actions. They build a mindset that stays firm in uncertainty, grounded in difficulty, and focused in distraction. The world does not become easier, but your mind becomes stronger. And a strong mind is capable of rising in any environment. By constructing routines that support clarity, discipline, and stability, you elevate your entire inner world. Each day becomes a reflection of intention rather than chance. Each action reinforces the identity of someone committed to growth. Over time, your mindset transforms into something precise, resilient, and powerful, shaped not by luck, but by disciplined routines that guide your life with purpose. Number 5. Design environments that support progress. An environment can either pull you forward or quietly pull you back, and most people underestimate just how much their surroundings shape their choices, their mood, and the standards they hold for themselves. Progress rarely depends on willpower alone. It depends far more on the spaces, cues, and energies you allow around you every day. When you walk into an environment that reflects clarity, structure, and intention, your mind naturally leans toward growth. When you stay in spaces filled with noise, chaos, or reminders of the person you used to be, your actions tend to follow that outdated version of yourself. Designing an environment that supports progress is ultimately an act of self-respect, because it signals that your goals deserve physical and mental space to thrive. The first step is becoming conscious of the environments you currently occupy, and how each one affects your mindset. Every place you spend time in carries subtle messages. A cluttered desk whispers unfinished tasks. A messy room encourages avoidance. A digital space full of distractions constantly pulls your focus away from what matters. On the other hand, an orderly workspace invites action. A calm room lets your mind breathe. A carefully curated digital feed feeds your motivation instead of draining it. When you evaluate your surroundings honestly, you start noticing the invisible anchors that have been slowing your progress without you realizing it. Once you understand how your environment influences your behavior, the next step is to adjust it so it naturally nudges you toward the choices you want to make. This doesn't require big renovations or expensive upgrades. Small shifts create powerful momentum. Clearing surfaces removes mental fog. Positioning books, notebooks, or tools where you can easily reach them reduces friction. Organizing your essentials eliminates unnecessary decisions. Even something as simple as placing your phone out of reach during focused work time can transform how much you accomplish. Your environment should remove excuses, not create them. It's also important to intentionally add elements that remind you of the person you're becoming. Visual cues shape identity. A quote that resonates with your goals can reinforce commitment. A calendar of completed tasks can show evidence of consistency. A simple setup that makes your routine smoother, like a dedicated corner for learning, journaling, or exercise, creates an atmosphere where progress feels natural instead of forced. Each cue becomes a small message from your future self, guiding your present action. Creating supportive environments also means designing space for discomfort, discipline, and growth. Progress doesn't happen in comfort zones, so your surroundings should encourage effort instead of convenience. This could mean positioning your workout equipment where you can't avoid seeing it, arranging your workspace so procrastination becomes inconvenient, or structuring your daily path so you move past reminders of what you're working toward. When you make the right action the easiest one, discipline stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like a default. Equally important is removing environmental triggers that lead to stagnation. Every environment carries the energy of habits, good or bad. If a particular corner of your home encourages endless scrolling, redesign it. If certain objects remind you of old patterns, replace them. If your living space feels heavy, brighten it. If your digital world overwhelms you, clean it. If your social environment drains you, create distance. The spaces around you should energize your ambition, not drain it. You don't need to create a perfect environment, you just need to remove the anchors that keep the old version of you alive. Designing a progress-supporting environment extends beyond physical spaces and into the emotional and social ones you engage with. The people you spend time with form a huge part of your environment, and their influence is just as powerful as the objects around you. Some people elevate your standards simply by being themselves. Others slowly wear down your momentum without realizing it. Protecting your growth sometimes means limiting your exposure to negativity, chaos, or lack of direction. You don't need to cut people off, you just need to create a boundary that keeps your energy aligned with the life you're building. Another layer of your environment includes habits, schedules, and rhythms. The structure you create throughout your day becomes the backdrop for everything you accomplish. A solid routine strengthens your sense of stability, and stability supports focus. When your day has predictable anchors, morning rituals, dedicated work blocks, periods of rest, your mind doesn't waste energy deciding what to do next. This frees you to invest that energy in deeper work and meaningful growth. Structure doesn't restrict you, it liberates you from chaos. Your digital world also deserves thoughtful design. Most people underestimate how much time they spend in digital environments, yet these spaces strongly influence motivation, attention, and emotional state. Curate your feeds so they teach, inspire, and support your goals. Remove accounts that trigger comparison, frustration, or distraction. Organize your files so you aren't buried in digital clutter. Limit notifications that interrupt your focus. Build a digital environment that is calm, clean, and geared toward progress, not noise. As you continue shaping your environment, it's helpful to think of each change as an investment in your future self. You're not just organizing a room, you're creating a foundation for clarity. You're not just deleting distractions, you're reclaiming your attention. You're not just adjusting a routine, you're strengthening your identity. Every intentional shift becomes a vote for the person you're becoming, and a gentle reminder that growth doesn't require dramatic moments, just consistent choices that steer you toward a higher standard. Over time, a supportive environment builds a sense of alignment between your internal world and your external reality. When the space around you reflects intention, your thoughts follow that pattern. When your thoughts are organized, your actions become more deliberate. When your actions become deliberate, your progress accelerates naturally. Your environment reinforces your identity, and your identity reinforces your environment. This creates a loop where growth becomes smoother, lighter, and more sustainable. Eventually, you'll notice that the environment you've designed doesn't just support your progress, it shapes your character. It strengthens discipline, reduces friction, and amplifies focus. It makes distractions less appealing and growth more accessible. It inspires consistency even on days when motivation fades. Most importantly, it communicates to you that you are serious about leveling up and that your goals are worth protecting. When you design environments that support progress, you make success less about force and more about flow. You give yourself permission to grow without fighting your surroundings. You build spaces that reflect your potential instead of your past, and you place yourself in a position where improvement feels natural, steady, and achievable every single day. Number 6. Enforce boundaries to protect inner peace. Protecting your inner peace begins with recognizing that your emotional energy is not an unlimited resource. Every conversation, every interaction, and every expectation others place on you either nurtures your mind or drains it. When you allow anything and anyone unrestricted access to your mental space, your clarity fades, your confidence weakens, and your sense of direction becomes scattered. Boundaries act as a shield, not to isolate you, but to preserve the parts of you that help you grow, heal, and move with intention. Enforcing them is an act of self-care, and it signals that your well-being matters just as much as the responsibilities and relationships you care about. Many people struggle to set limits because they fear conflict, disappointment, or the possibility of being misunderstood. But peace cannot survive in places where your needs are dismissed. True stability comes from learning to communicate your limits without apology. You don't need to justify your boundaries or convince anyone why they're necessary. You simply need to honor the space between what helps you and what harms you. That space becomes the doorway to a calmer, more grounded life, one where you are not overwhelmed, emotionally exhausted, or stretched thin in every direction. Before enforcing boundaries with others, it's essential to understand what drains you. Some situations leave you tense long after they've ended. Certain conversations feel heavy before they even begin. There are people who may not intend to harm you, but their presence disrupts your balance. Emotional triggers can hide inside patterns you've tolerated for years. Becoming aware of these sources of strain is the first step in reclaiming control. You cannot protect your peace until you know what threatens it. Once you identify the moments that unsettle you, you can begin developing boundaries that align with your emotional needs. Some boundaries revolve around time, limiting how much of it you give away, learning to say no without guilt, and refusing to overcommit simply to please others. Some boundaries revolve around communication, refusing to be drawn into arguments that go nowhere, ending conversations that escalate into negativity, and declining to absorb other people's emotional burdens. Other boundaries revolve around access, choosing who gets close to you, who stays at a distance, and who no longer deserves a place in your personal world. Every boundary you create is a declaration that your peace is not negotiable. As you start enforcing these limits, You may notice resistance from those who benefited from your lack of boundaries. People who are used to you being available, accommodating, or endlessly patient may feel unsettled when you begin prioritizing yourself. This reaction doesn't mean your boundaries are wrong, it means they're working. Others' discomfort is not a sign to retreat. It's a sign that you've stopped sacrificing your emotional stability to keep relationships easy. Over time, the people meant to remain in your life will adjust, respect your limits, and meet you with the same level of consideration you offer them. Enforcing boundaries also means monitoring your own habits. Sometimes, you are the one who violates your peace without meaning to. You let your mind wander into unnecessary worries. You revisit old conflicts in your thoughts. You expose yourself to digital environments that heighten stress. You allow self-doubt to take root because you're afraid of disappointing others. Protecting your inner world involves setting boundaries with yourself, stepping away from chaos, giving your mind quiet time, and refusing to participate in patterns that destroy your calm. You cannot control everything around you, but you can control how much access negativity has to your heart. Inner peace grows stronger when you create space for stillness. Boundaries make this possible. When you step back from the noise demanding your attention, you finally hear your own thoughts clearly. You understand what you want, what you truly care about, and what direction feels right for you. Without boundaries, life becomes a constant reaction to external pressures. With boundaries, you move from a place of intention. You stop rushing to meet every expectation. You stop absorbing emotional turbulence that has nothing to do with you. You stop trying to manage everyone else's feelings. You begin choosing actions that preserve your clarity rather than destroy it. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It is a necessary form of survival. You cannot grow mentally, emotionally, or spiritually in environments that drain you. You cannot pursue long-term goals while drowning in obligations you never wanted. You cannot cultivate joy if your days are filled with tension. Boundaries provide the breathing room you need to strengthen your identity, maintain your mental balance, and show up with authenticity instead of exhaustion. You become more patient because you're no longer overwhelmed. You become more focused because your attention is not fragmented. You become more confident because you stand by what you need. With time, enforcing boundaries becomes easier because the stability they create becomes something you refuse to compromise. The more consistently you protect your peace, the more natural it feels to distance yourself from anything that disrupts it. You start valuing your time with greater seriousness. You start noticing when a conversation drains you instead of energizing you. You start walking away from people who thrive on chaos. You stop participating in situations that demand emotional labor but give little in return. Peace becomes a standard rather than a luxury. Eventually, these boundaries shape a new version of you, one that is calm, self-aware, and grounded. You trust yourself more because you honor your emotional needs instead of ignoring them. You express yourself more clearly because you no longer fear losing approval. You choose connections based on mutual respect rather than obligation. You pursue goals with a quiet strength because your mind is no longer cluttered with tension. Your life becomes less about reacting and more about choosing. By enforcing boundaries, you create a life where your inner world remains steady, despite the noise outside. You learn to navigate relationships with clarity. You give your energy to what matters. You detach from what drains you. You build a mental environment where peace is protected, where your emotional space is treated with care, and where your heart finally has room to breathe. Number 7. Prioritize wellness to fuel resilience. Resilience doesn't appear out of nowhere. It grows from the way you treat your body, nourish your mind, and honor your emotional needs. Wellness is not a luxury or an optional lifestyle choice reserved for days when life feels calm. It is a daily practice that reinforces your strength long before adversity arrives. The more consistently you care for yourself, the more prepared you become to endure pressure without collapsing under it. Your ability to stay steady during difficult moments depends heavily on how well you support yourself during ordinary moments. Every healthy choice becomes a quiet investment in the future version of you who will one day face challenges with a clear mind and a capable spirit. Many people underestimate the connection between their physical habits and their emotional stability. A tired body cannot anchor a stressed mind. When energy levels are constantly low, even minor setbacks feel heavier than they should. When sleep is irregular, the smallest inconveniences feel overwhelming. When nutrition is neglected, concentration disappears and motivation weakens. Resilience starts with the basics: rest, nourishment, and movement. These simple acts of self-support create the foundation that allows you to show up with clarity instead of mental fog. A steady mind depends on a steady body, and caring for your physical health is one of the most reliable ways to strengthen your mental endurance. Emotional wellness also plays a significant role in building resilience. You cannot navigate life effectively when you ignore your internal signals. People often push through exhaustion, suppress feelings, or numb discomfort because slowing down feels inconvenient. But emotions that are avoided do not disappear. They accumulate and eventually demand attention in disruptive ways. Learning to acknowledge your feelings without judgment allows you to handle stress with maturity instead of reacting impulsively. Giving yourself permission to rest, reflect, and decompress is not weakness. It is a strategy. Emotional resilience thrives when you regularly check in with yourself, process tension before it spirals, and allow your mind breathing room. Mental wellness is equally essential. The thoughts you entertain influence the strength you carry into each day. When your inner voice is harsh, resilience becomes harder to maintain. When your mind constantly predicts failure, challenges feel impossible. Cultivating a supportive mindset through intentional practices strengthens your ability to stay composed during difficult times. Reading meaningful books, practicing gratitude, engaging in reflective writing, and exposing yourself to calm environments all contribute to a healthier mental landscape. When your thoughts are aligned with growth rather than fear, you become more capable of handling uncertainty and setbacks with confidence. Resilience also grows stronger when you remove unnecessary sources of stress. Wellness is not just about adding positive habits, it's about reducing the factors that quietly drain you. Overcommitment, disorganized spaces, constant digital consumption, and relationships filled with tension slowly wear down your capacity to cope. Creating a life with more order and less chaos strengthens you more than you may realize. Decluttering your environment, limiting screens before bed, simplifying your schedule, and stepping away from emotionally draining interactions all contribute to a calmer mind. Small adjustments create a ripple effect that makes you more adaptable and less reactive. Prioritizing wellness requires intention, especially in a world that encourages constant movement and endless productivity. Many people are taught to push themselves even when their body is asking for rest. They chase external goals while ignoring the internal maintenance that success requires. But resilience thrives when your life is balanced, not overloaded. Taking breaks, slowing down, and caring for your health do not take away from your progress. They strengthen it. A life built on exhaustion is unstable. A life built on sustainable habits quietly prepares you to handle unexpected challenges without losing yourself in the process. Another important part of resilience is strengthening your stress recovery rate. Stress itself is not the problem. It's how long you remain stuck in it. When your wellness habits are consistent, you recover from tension faster. A good night's sleep resets your mind. A balanced meal steadies your mood. A quiet walk clears mental clutter. A meaningful conversation softens emotional weight. When you invest in wellness, you shorten the time it takes to bounce back, transforming challenges into manageable moments rather than overwhelming crises. Resilience also grows when you build supportive routines that honor your limits. Many people assume strength means taking on everything alone, but true strength involves recognizing when you need space, rest, or help. Wellness includes allowing yourself to be human, imperfect, emotional, and evolving. Asking for support when necessary, giving yourself time to recharge, and acknowledging your boundaries all reinforce your ability to endure difficulties without breaking. You become more stable not because life gets easier but because your inner structure becomes stronger. Consistency is the force that turns wellness into resilience. Occasional healthy choices bring temporary relief, but daily habits create transformation. When wellness becomes part of your identity rather than an occasional activity, you naturally develop the endurance to face challenges with a calm heart. You stop reacting impulsively. You stop burning out from constant pressure. You stop treating yourself as an afterthought. Instead, you become someone who moves through life with steadiness, clarity, and emotional strength. You gain trust in yourself because you know you have built the internal resources to handle whatever comes. Over time, prioritizing wellness reshapes the way you live. Your energy feels more stable, your thoughts become clearer, stress loses its intensity. You approach setbacks with problem-solving instead of panic. You recognize challenges as temporary rather than defining. You stop feeling fragile during difficult seasons because you've built a strong foundation that supports you even when life becomes unpredictable. This strength does not appear overnight. It grows from the choices you make every day, choices that reinforce your health, protect your mind, and nurture your heart. Wellness is an act of respect toward yourself. It signals that your well-being deserves time, effort, and care. It shows that you value your life enough to strengthen your foundation rather than live in survival mode. Resilience thrives when you honor your needs with consistency, when you show up for yourself even on days when motivation is low, and when you cultivate habits that support your long-term stability. Prioritizing wellness allows you to step into each challenge with steadiness and confidence, carrying the quiet strength that comes from caring for yourself deeply and intentionally. Number 8. Upgrade skills with consistent practice. Growth becomes possible the moment you accept that skill is not a gift, but a craft, built through steady effort. Every person who rises to excellence, no matter their field, is shaped by the hours they dedicate when no one is watching. Talent can open a door, but only consistent practice keeps it open. When you commit to improving your abilities day by day, you transform raw potential into something reliable, something strong, something that carries you toward the future you want. Progress becomes less about sudden breakthroughs and more about the quiet determination to refine yourself, even when progress feels slow. Developing new skills begins with humility, the willingness to be a beginner, to make mistakes, and to learn without ego interfering. Many people never improve because they avoid the discomfort that comes with practicing something they are not yet good at. They fear judgment, they fear failure, and they fear the awkwardness of not being instantly capable. Yet every master once stood exactly where the beginner stands, uncertain, inconsistent, and learning through trial. When you embrace imperfection as part of the process, you free yourself to grow without unnecessary pressure. Each repetition becomes a step forward even when the progress is too small to notice at first. Consistent practice sharpens your focus and strengthens your discipline. When you show up repeatedly, you train your mind to value effort over excuses. You stop waiting for motivation to appear because your routine becomes stronger than your mood. Showing up becomes a habit rather than a decision you debate every day. This discipline spills into other areas of your life as well. As you commit to improving one skill, your patience grows, your attention deepens, and your capacity to stay dedicated strengthens. These qualities influence every goal you pursue, turning you into someone who follows through rather than someone who only dreams. The beauty of consistent practice is that it compounds over time. What feels small today becomes significant later. A few minutes each day can eventually outperform sporadic bursts of effort. Slow progress beats inconsistent intensity because consistency shapes identity. You begin to see yourself as capable, committed, and evolving. This shift in self-perception fuels your drive to continue. Momentum grows, and tasks that once felt difficult become familiar, then manageable, then natural. The more you practice, the more your skill becomes part of who you are rather than something you do occasionally. Another powerful aspect of consistent practice is the clarity it brings. As you spend more time developing a skill, you begin to understand your strengths and weaknesses with greater accuracy. You learn which methods work best for you, which habits slow you down, and which adjustments accelerate improvement. This self-awareness helps you practice smarter, not just harder. You start recognizing patterns, noticing tendencies, and refining your approach with precision. Improvement becomes intentional rather than accidental, and your growth becomes more predictable and steady. Skill development also teaches resilience. Not every practice session will feel rewarding. Some days will be filled with frustration, mistakes, and slow progress. But pushing through these moments teaches you how to handle challenges with calm persistence. It builds mental toughness because you learn not to abandon the process when it becomes difficult. Instead of giving up, you adapt. Instead of withdrawing, you deepen your efforts. This resilience becomes one of your strongest assets, shaping your ability to stay committed even during uncertain times. As you continue practicing, you begin to notice subtle improvements that boost your confidence. The skill that once felt intimidating becomes less overwhelming. Movements flow more naturally. Concepts that once confused you start making sense. Tasks that once demanded intense concentration become more effortless. These small breakthroughs have enormous psychological power. They remind you that effort pays off, that you are capable of growth, and that your potential is far greater than you once believed. Confidence earned through practice is unshakable because it is built on evidence rather than wishful thinking. A key part of upgrading your skills is embracing deliberate practice. This means practicing with purpose rather than going through motions. You challenge yourself with new drills, push beyond your comfort zone, and focus on specific areas that need improvement. You stay mentally engaged instead of performing tasks mindlessly. Deliberate practice creates deeper mastery than repetition alone. It demands attention, patience, and effort, but it also creates breakthroughs that elevate your ability far beyond what casual practice can achieve. Consistency also helps you overcome fear. The fear of falling short, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of trying something unfamiliar. As you practice repeatedly, your fear weakens because your competence grows. You stop viewing skill development as a risky effort and begin seeing it as a natural part of growth. The more often you face the discomfort of practice, the easier it becomes to face discomfort in other areas of life. You develop a mindset that welcomes challenge rather than avoids it. Upgrading your skills influences your overall life direction. With every new ability you strengthen, new opportunities appear. You become more valuable in your work. You become more confident in your decisions. You expand your capabilities and widen the number of paths available to you. Growth multiplies possibilities. What once seemed out of reach begins to feel attainable. You build a future where you are not limited by what you didn't know yesterday because you've made a habit of learning today. Discipline in practice becomes even more powerful when paired with consistency in reflection. Taking time to observe your progress helps you stay motivated and focused. You recognize how far you've come, which strengthens your belief in how far you can go. Reflecting on your growth also helps you adjust your methods to stay aligned with your goals. You become more intentional with your time, more strategic with your efforts, and more aware of the areas that need attention. Reflection transforms practice into progress. As your skills improve, you also begin to understand the value of patience. Progress rarely happens in large leaps. It arrives through small, quiet improvements accumulated over time. Patience allows you to keep moving forward, even when you can't yet see the results. It keeps you grounded during frustrating moments and prevents you from abandoning your efforts prematurely. Patience is not passive. It is an active commitment to growth without demanding immediate reward. Eventually, consistent practice shapes a version of you who trusts your ability to improve. You stop comparing yourself to others because you're focused on your own development. You stop fearing challenges because you've mastered the art of progress. You stop doubting your potential because you've proven to yourself that effort leads to transformation. Upgrading your skills becomes more than a task. It becomes a way of living, a way of honoring your future, and a way of building a life founded on competence, confidence, and continuous evolution. By practicing consistently, you develop a sense of inner strength that carries you through obstacles. You gain control over your growth. You discover the satisfaction of becoming better not by chance but by choice. You step into a life where improvement is constant and your abilities expand with every effort you make. Each practice session becomes a quiet act of self-respect, a refusal to remain the same, and a commitment to becoming someone stronger, wiser, and more capable than you were yesterday. Number 9. Replace doubt with intentional affirmations. A quiet shift begins the moment you decide to stop letting doubt speak louder than your intentions. That inner voice that questions your worth, your timing, your abilities, or your potential has rehearsed its lines for years, so today, you're giving it new ones. This chapter is about replacing those draining automatic doubts with deliberate affirmations that strengthen your identity instead of weakening it. You're choosing language that elevates your self-image, sharpens your inner direction, and brings your future closer with every repetition. Doubt often slips into the mind disguised as caution, logic, or realism. It sneaks in through old memories, failed attempts, or comments from people who didn't understand your capability. You start hearing phrases like, "What if this doesn't work?" What if I'm not ready? Or what if I embarrass myself? These questions root you to the same place, repeating the same cycles. But intentional affirmations interrupt that loop. They don't wait for permission. They don't negotiate with fear. They create a new internal rhythm that slowly rewrites the way you interpret challenges. To replace doubt, you need to first observe how it shows up. Notice the moments when your energy drops, your confidence shrinks, or your courage hesitates. Doubt often arrives in these micro moments. Before sending a message, before taking a step forward, before making a decision that could change you, most people let those moments pass unchallenged. But you're no longer most people. You're catching the thought mid-sentence and replacing it with a statement that aligns with the person you're becoming. Intentional affirmations work because the brain listens to repetition. It absorbs patterns. It believes what it hears consistently. When you repeat affirmations with conviction, you're not simply saying words, you're reshaping your internal language until it becomes automatic. Eventually, your mind stops defaulting to fear. It begins defaulting to self-trust. The effectiveness of affirmations increases when they are purposeful, present-focused, and personal. Saying "I believe in myself" is good, but saying "I trust my judgment and make decisions with clarity" is transformative. Saying "I will be confident one day" lacks power, but saying "I embody confidence in every step I take today" anchors confidence into the present moment. Doubt thrives in vague spaces. Affirmations eliminate that vagueness with targeted precision. As you begin using intentional affirmations, speak them with full presence. You're not rushing through lines like a script you barely know. You're owning each phrase as if it already belongs to you. Feel the meaning behind every sentence. Let your posture change. Let your breathing deepen. Let your energy shift from hesitation to certainty. This isn't about pretending to be someone else. It's about remembering who you truly are beneath the layers of doubt. There will be days when the affirmations feel unnatural. That's expected. Your mind is adjusting to a new emotional vocabulary. Keep repeating them anyway. Growth doesn't begin with comfort. It begins with consistency. The moment the affirmations start feeling normal, you'll realize that your identity has expanded. You're operating from a stronger internal foundation, one built on intention instead of insecurity. You might notice that your decisions become clearer. You stop overthinking simple actions. You move without second-guessing yourself. Opportunities no longer feel intimidating. They feel like invitations. Challenges no longer feel like threats. They feel like stepping stones. That shift is the direct result of replacing doubt with affirmations that reinforce your agency. It's important to craft affirmations that match your goals and the self-image you're cultivating. For example, if doubt typically attacks your confidence, anchor yourself with statements like, "My presence has value. My voice deserves to be heard. I trust my ability to learn quickly." If doubt targets your progress, remind yourself, "I move forward with discipline. Every step I take builds momentum. I create growth through intentional actions." If doubt targets your worthiness, affirm, "I am deserving of good things. I am enough in this moment. I honor my journey and celebrate my evolution." These statements are not fantasies, they are mental alignment. Over time, your affirmations will begin influencing your behavior. You'll notice yourself speaking with more clarity, choosing healthier environments, setting stronger boundaries, and approaching challenges with a steady mindset. You'll catch yourself doing things that once seemed intimidating. You'll feel more rooted in your purpose. Your self-dialogue becomes a source of power rather than sabotage. Replacing doubt isn't a one-time task, it's a continuous upgrade. Doubt will attempt to return in moments of fatigue, stress, or transition. But now you have tools. You have language that supports you instead of limiting you. When doubt whispers, you answer with intention. You refuse to entertain stories that shrink your potential. You choose the narrative that moves you forward. This transformation also affects how you carry yourself in daily life. You start showing up with a quiet confidence, not loud, not forced, but grounded. You walk differently. You respond differently. You set goals with belief rather than hope. You treat yourself with more kindness, more discipline, and more respect. Your inner world becomes a place of encouragement rather than criticism. And that internal shift creates external results. Intentional affirmations don't magically erase challenges. They strengthen you for them. They make your mind clearer, your actions steadier, and your heart more resilient. They guide you through self-doubt, allowing you to show up as the version of yourself capable of growth, success, and fulfillment. You begin to act like someone who trusts their path. You become someone who expects progress instead of fearing disappointment. As you continue forward, remind yourself daily that your thoughts shape your self-image, and your self-image shapes your reality. You are training your mind to support your evolution. You're not just replacing doubt, you're rebuilding your identity with precision and purpose. Affirmations are your new internal compass. They guide your energy, your mindset, and your decisions. Speak them with intention, repeat them with conviction, live them with consistency. Every time you choose them, you're leveling up from the inside out. Number 10. Level up through self-respecting actions. Every turning point in your life begins with a single choice. The choice to treat yourself with enough respect to act in alignment with your highest standards. Growth doesn't start with motivation or inspiration. It starts with self-respect expressed through consistent actions. The moment you decide that your energy, your time, and your potential deserve better, your entire path begins to shift. This chapter focuses on the kind of actions that elevate your identity, strengthen your boundaries, and shape a life that reflects your worth. Self-respecting actions are rooted in clarity. You begin by defining what you will no longer tolerate from yourself or the world around you. You identify the habits that drain your strength, the patterns that keep you stuck, the relationships that pull you backward, and the excuses that delay your progress. You become intentional about showing up with discipline, even on days when your mind wants comfort. Respect for yourself grows every time you choose the behavior that matches your goals instead of the one that matches your fears or impulses. One of the most powerful signs of self-respect is honoring your commitments. Whether it's waking up at a specific time, finishing what you start, or following through on a promise to yourself, your actions build trust within your identity. Every time you follow through, you send yourself a message: I can depend on me. That message becomes the foundation of confidence. Confidence isn't built by hype, it's built by self-loyalty. When you trust your word, your actions naturally upgrade to match a stronger version of you. Another essential part of leveling up through self-respecting actions is protecting your environment. The people you allow near your mind influence how you think, speak, and behave. The conversations you engage in shape the direction of your mindset. When you respect yourself, you stop giving energy to people who drain your ambition. You stop tolerating relationships that require you to shrink. You stop accepting behaviors that diminish your value. You surround yourself with individuals who challenge you, support your growth, and hold you to a higher standard. Self-respecting action also means managing your time with intention. Time is one of the clearest reflections of what you value. When you choose productivity over procrastination, learning over mindless scrolling, self-care over self-neglect, your life begins to shift. You create routines that support your purpose, not sabotage it. You focus on the tasks that bring long-term fulfillment, rather than short-term escape. You step into each day with a sense of direction instead of drifting through habits that lead nowhere. Your schedule becomes a mirror of your priority. Taking care of your body is another cornerstone of leveling up. Eating nourishing food, moving with consistency, getting quality rest, and treating your body with care are all expressions of respect. Your physical state influences your decisions, your mood, and your discipline. When your energy is strong, your choices become sharper. When your body feels supported, your mind becomes clearer. You begin to move through life with more power and presence. Your body becomes an ally rather than a burden. Self-respecting action also involves embracing honesty, not the kind directed toward others, the kind you direct toward yourself. You stop pretending that certain habits don't hurt you. You stop rationalizing behaviors that keep you stagnant. You stop telling yourself stories that limit your growth. You become transparent about your weaknesses, aware of your triggers, and committed to doing the inner work necessary for change. Honesty creates momentum because clarity leads to intentional action. You elevate your life by choosing discipline over convenience. Discipline is not punishment. It is a form of self-care. It is the decision to act in service of your future self, even when your present self wants comfort. Discipline builds character, stabilizes your emotions, and strengthens your identity. It's the silent force behind every meaningful transformation. When you choose discipline consistently, you begin to embody someone who respects their potential enough to protect it with action. Self-respect also means setting boundaries without guilt. You learn to say no to the things that derail your focus, no to the people who misuse your time, and no to opportunities that conflict with your vision. Every no to something that diminishes you becomes a yes to something that elevates you. Boundaries create space for growth. They filter out chaos. They give your goals the room they need to grow root. A self-respecting version of you no longer tolerates situations that jeopardize your peace. Another powerful shift comes from choosing self-improvement over self-judgment. Instead of criticizing yourself for where you are, you take constructive steps to become who you want to be. You study, you practice, you experiment, and you refine. You embrace the process without rushing your evolution. You understand that mastery is built one deliberate action at a time. Respect for yourself means creating progress with patience instead of destroying your confidence with unrealistic expectations. You level up by keeping your inner world clean. This includes your thoughts, your self-talk, your beliefs, and the stories you repeat internally. You refuse to entertain self-sabotaging narratives. You replace negative patterns with constructive ones. You direct your thoughts towards solutions rather than problems. You speak to yourself with the same strength, compassion, and clarity that you would offer someone you deeply care about. Your inner dialogue becomes a source of power instead of a battlefield. The more you practice self-respecting actions, the more your identity evolves. You begin to feel more grounded and decisive. You act with intention instead of reacting out of habit. You show up with a stronger posture, a clearer voice, and a more defined vision. People around you begin to feel the shift. Your choices reflect maturity. Your energy signals confidence. Your presence carries purpose. You no longer chase validation, you embody it. Eventually, your standards rise to a point where reverting to old patterns becomes impossible. You've outgrown the version of yourself that tolerated disrespect, procrastination, and doubt. You've stepped into a new level of integrity, discipline, and self-alignment. Your actions reveal the truth of who you are becoming: someone capable, focused, resilient, and intentional. Someone who demands more from themselves because they know they deserve more from life. Leveling up is not a moment. It is a lifestyle. A lifestyle built through daily decisions that honor your goals, your growth, and your well-being. A lifestyle defined by the quiet power of self-respect expressed through action. When you choose behaviors that uplift you, your entire life rises to match the energy you carry. This chapter reminds you that every action either strengthens your self-respect or weakens it. Choose the ones that build you. Choose the ones that shape you. Choose the ones that elevate your path. Respect yourself enough to act like the person you're becoming, not the person you used to be.